Hi everyone, I'm Jack and today I'm here to talk about my A-level exam results and university acceptance. This is probably going to be a video for those that live in the UK purely because of the educational system we have here and the confusing terms that I might be using. You can of course watch the video if you don't live here to find out how I did. But I apologise if you start getting confused by some of the things that I'm saying. I did a video last year about my AS level exam results and a lot of people seem to really enjoy watching that, and a few people requested that I did one this year, so I thought that I would come on today and make a video and hopefully give advice and tips and kind of go through my experiences with sixth form and A-levels and how everything turned out in the end. I just want to say that it's not bragging. I would never ever want to do that on my channel. I want to share my experiences in order to help people. Bragging is not useful, it's not something that I would ever aspire to do, so please don't think that. I really apologise. I don't like having to apologise because I'm not even bragging, but I just want to make it very clear that's not the intention. I would never want to do that. So Wednesday was the day before exam results and I was really terrified. I did not know what to expect. I was just really scared. I couldn't really sleep at all on Wednesday night going into Thursday morning. I just could not really sleep. I decided to get up around 6:30 and log into my laptop. I didn't really know exactly what time I would be able to find out if I got in. I know UCAS says it's around 8 o'clock, but they tend to update a little bit earlier, usually around half an hour early. So I was on Twitter and the student room and things, talking to a few people, and then suddenly Track decided to go live at 7:25, so I wasn't expecting that. I was very surprised when it came on. For some reason I was just very apprehensive to click the login button, but I finally did in the end, and it said that I'd got into my firm choice university, which is Durham, and I'm going to be studying French and Spanish. I was so ecstatic to find out that I'd got in. It's basically my dream university. As soon as I knew I wanted to go to university a few years ago, this is the one that I always looked at. I always went on their website, I was always very impressed. When I went to the open days, it was such a friendly place. It's the place I want to be. So the first subject that I studied was French, and in French I managed to get an A, which is amazing. Obviously it's one of the ones I'm studying at university, so it is my favourite subject, my joint favourite subject with Spanish. I really loved French as an A-level. I felt like I improved so much with my languages skills over the 2 years. My class was amazing. It was a very small class, around 4 or 5 people, and we got a lot of interaction. We got to practice a lot with speaking in particular. We also got a lot of attention when we were writing essays and a lot of corrections and things. It was very useful. Just a really fun subject. It was a very relaxed class as well, but for some reason we progressed loads. The speaking exam was FN3 and I managed to get 75 out of 80 UMS, which is a lot more than I was expecting. A lot more, because honestly my French pronunciation is not fantastic. I was practicing over the past year and I definitely improved, but obviously in the exam situation I was very nervous, so it probably wasn't as good as it usually was. But I think maybe what brought the marks up was the content of what I was saying, the opinions and analysis that I was giving. There's basically a part of the exam where you have to present about something. You can do things like books and plays and films and stuff like that as well, and I chose to do a 17th century French play called Le Misanthrope by Molière, which is amazing. It's a really interesting play. It was quite challenging to read because it's very old French, very ancient language, but it was fascinating at the same time, and I think maybe the examiner was really interested because probably no one else has done something like that before. It was quite different. It wasn't the typical choice. Normally you pick more modern things, and I wanted to be a bit different, so I think maybe that's what interested the examiner. Maybe that's why they gave me a good mark. For the listening, reading and writing exam, I managed to get 101 out of 120, slightly lower than with AS, purely because the exam was definitely much harder this year, and also compared to the previous A2 exams, this was even harder. You know, the past papers weren't too bad. This year's was just a bit off for me. Like, the essay question, which is like worth half of the marks, was a bit weird. For some reason it was very vague. I didn't really know what to write about. I mean, I must have done okay in it, but I was very apprehensive about getting marks for this because I just didn't know if I'd have interpreted it right, what the examiner would think. There were a few things as well, like the listening wasn't fantastic, and probably a few things maybe on the reading comprehensions that I didn't get, but overall I'm very happy to get an A in the exam because I really wanted to get straight A's in all of my French exams, AS and A2, and that's what I did. I was very close to an A star. I think it was around 4 UMS off, but I don't want to be one of those people that are complaining about not getting an A star because an A is fantastic. We also have to remember that a lot of native speakers are taking the French exams and they bring the boundaries up a lot, so to get an A when I'm competing with them is still a very, very good achievement because they're probably getting their A stars and celebrating that. I'm very happy with my A because I think it's what I deserve. The next subject that I took was, of course, Spanish, and in Spanish I managed to get an A as well, but my marks were slightly different. For the speaking, SN3, I got 62 out of 80 UMS, and this is honestly a little bit confusing. I don't want to complain that I got a B in the speaking, but I'm comparing it with French, and I know that I am worse at French speaking. I know that my pronunciation is better in Spanish, I'm more confident. The examiner also seemed a lot more friendly, so I was probably more relaxed. I would have expected it to be the other way around, to get a high mark in the Spanish speaking, a low mark in the French speaking, or a B is not a low mark, but you know, slightly lower, but it's still very good. I mean, it was literally 1 mark off an A, so it didn't really matter. It was still an A overall. And then in the writing exam, I got 103 out of 120, which is very good. I was quite happy with the Spanish exam. The only thing that I didn't really like was the translation. There were a few weird words and phrases that were very specific to different topics that I didn't really know. I remember after that exam, I was very stressed about one of the sentences in the translation. I initially wrote the sentence correctly when I was doing the exam. It just came to the top of my head and I just wrote what I thought was right. Then I got to the end of the exam and I had a lot of spare time, so I decided to cross it out. I didn't know that it was actually right. And then I wrote some incorrect Spanish that wasn't even Spanish. It was literally made up words because I didn't know if I'd wrote the correct thing the first time, even though I had. So I was very annoyed that I would have lost marks for that. But I did really enjoy writing the essay in that exam. It was about Pan's Labyrinth, which is one of my favourite foreign films, probably my favourite in fact. Very, very amazing, very complex and dark, and I just absolutely loved that. So that was great to write about, even though the translation wasn't so fantastic. The final subject that I studied was English literature, and English literature I got an A star. I don't understand either. I read a lot, I understand that, and people will probably think, oh, but you read so many books, it's so easy to get an A star. No, it is not. I don't understand how this happened. I genuinely do not understand, because this was my worst subject. If I was to get an A star, I would be getting it in probably French or Spanish, and then to get it in this was just a big, big shock. Last year at AS I got a B, and I was very disappointed with that, not because a B is a bad grade, but because I'd worked so hard. Because I felt like I could have done better in that exam, I actually decided to resit the exam, and that was Lit B1, and on the resit I changed my marks so much, they improved so much. The first time I got 84, second time I got 120 out of 120, which is mental. I don't understand, really. I mean, I think the exam was good. Like, I was quite happy with the exam. I didn't know if I interpreted things correctly. For me, that's always the risk with English. I know that a lot of people will say there is no correct answer, but there are definitely things that the examiners don't like, and sometimes when you're writing in the heat of the moment, you make mistakes and you've no idea what the examiner is going to think. So I was absolutely ecstatic about that result. And then I was even more surprised about the Lit B3 exam, which for me was probably the hardest exam I did this year, and I got 120 out of 120. I found that exam very challenging because we had to memorise quotations from 3 different books, and there were so many to remember, it was crazy. And it was very, very stressful coming up to the exam. I definitely think that the examiner was being very generous with me, because I honestly was not too happy with my answers. I felt like in the practice papers my answers were good, but in the actual exam I was a bit nervous. So, I mean, I'm not complaining obviously, it's just a bit confusing. And then in the coursework, which was my favourite part of the entire English A-level, I got 80 out of 80 UMS. What I really loved about this coursework module was that it was further and independent reading, so we got to pick our own texts. We were very independent when we were writing essays. We even got to write our own question and plan everything out in the exact way that we wanted. I did a comparison of Jane Eyre, which is my favourite classic novel, and Why Sargasso Sea, which is a prequel to Jane Eyre. I think I talked about isolation and oppression, and it was just such a fun essay. I really loved redrafting it and drafting it again and again. Instead of being forced to write about a certain book, I could write exactly what I wanted about 2 really fantastic novels that I was passionate about. I think that's probably why I did so well, because I put so much effort in, I was so interested in these books. I also think because it was independent reading, I didn't have to overanalyze anything. Normally when you analyze things in class, you go through every single chapter and you go into so much detail with everything. With the coursework, you kind of just pick the parts that you want to analyse and write the essay, and it was just really good fun. And then I did another essay about feminism and gender, about Porphyria's Lover by Robert Browning, which is also a really interesting poem. I don't tend to read a lot of poetry, so it's quite hard to pick a poem for that coursework essay, but I found that and it worked very well with the question that I had to do. My main advice for English is just to practice, practice, practice. Do as many practice essays as you can, and with the coursework, put hours and hours and hours of work into it. It will save you. You can do well on the coursework because it's much more of a guaranteed mark than the exam. The exam is very unpredictable. Sometimes the examiners are harsh, sometimes they're very generous like they were with me. So I think with the coursework, there's a lot more certainty about it. So work very hard on that. That is the biggest advice that I would give about English. And also only take the subject if you love reading. If you don't like books, don't take it because you won't enjoy it. So everyone, that is it for today's video about my A-level results. I am very, 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 very happy with A star AA. It's much more than I ever expected. The grade requirements for Durham were 3 A's, so when I knew that I'd got in, I thought I would probably get that. So to get 1 A star is just amazing. I did put a lot of work into my A-levels. I gave my entire life over to them for months before the exams. I was revising so much. So I think that A star really just reflects the extra mile that I went. I'm very, very happy with it, and just happy with all of my subjects, really. I can't wait to start university because it's going to be such a different experience. I kind of want to get back into studying now. I've had such a big break from studying and things, and I just want to get back into it, learn about foreign languages again, and it's just going to be so much fun. I am a bit nervous about university because it's a very, very different thing for me. I'm a socially awkward person. I will not lie about that. I definitely am. So meeting new people and going to big social events with lots of people is quite scary for me. I get very anxious about stuff like that. So I don't know how that kind of stuff is going to go, but I will try and find my comfort zone. I obviously want to push myself a little bit and meet people, but I'm not going to make myself uncomfortable. Anyway, let's not talk about the negatives about university. I'd like to focus on the amazing time that I'm going to have. Everyone seems to love university, and particularly Durham. I think it's going to be a fantastic city to live in. It's so historical, it's a beautiful city. They have an amazing cathedral and an amazing castle as well. It's just going to be an amazing, amazing place to live. Everything is amazing. I keep saying the word amazing, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I did help some of you. I might do more educational videos in the future because I feel like I know a lot about the education system. I've been through a lot of different levels, and I really like talking about things like this for some reason, so maybe I'll do some more if you want. Definitely let me know down below how you did in your A-levels or your AS levels or whatever exams you're taking. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you all again in my next video.